Good? Great. Okay. Thank you again for coming. This is great. So I hope, as I said, I think it is really worth of this effort. This kind of interaction, it's going to add to the quality of the class. These classes and the content of these classes is really critical, and having such kind of interaction will absolutely help. For those who are not here and watch the video, I hope you also benefit from the questions of your colleagues over here. So, before I move on and continue what I started, which is firewalls and IPSEC, I just want to go back to one slide on my crypto system, which is kind of an overlooked. And I talked about hashing, but I did not kind of emphasize or illustrated the differences between hashing and encryption. Okay, so hash functions are very different from encryption or crypto functions. Okay, encryption functions and hash functions are very different in terms of purpose, use, and how it works. Okay, the most important thing here that a hash is a function that produces a random digest of a fixed length, regardless how the size of the message is. Okay, so you have a message of 10 bits or a message of 1,000 bits. The output of the hash is the same fixed size. Very important. Okay, this is different from encryption. Encryption is proportional to the size. If you want to encrypt 10 bits, the size is different from encrypting 1,000 bits. The size of 1,000 bits will be much bigger than the size of 10 bits. But the hash, it does not matter what's the size, it's always have a fixed length. So we represent hash function by h. Okay, so h of m mean hash of this message. Okay, if you have this message, give you a digest. Okay, so let's say this is M1, message number 1, whatever the message is, could be M1 is hello. Okay, so it gives you a digest D1. Okay, this is as simple as this. Okay, so a hash function is a function like this. You pass it a message as an input. It gives you random digest. But look at the property of this. It's a very interesting property of this. So if you hash another function, another message, M2. If you hash another message, M2, it gives you another digest D2, right? What a hash function basic principle and property here is saying that if M1 is different than M2, then D1 must be different than D2. That's what hash means. Okay. D1 and D2, fixed length, despite what's the size of M1 and M2. Okay, so what is the very common use of hash? Password. Passwords are stored as a digest, as a hash. Okay, they are not stored in your system as a plain text, and does not need to be encrypted. Hash is good enough. So when you put a password, my password is today is hot. Okay, that's your password. Okay, you pass it through a hash function, and you get a digest for it. This is D3. Okay, and will be stored in the system, somewhere in the system, in the file here. It's called password hash. It's supposed to come here. Yeah, okay, good. It's coming, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Password hash. Okay, it is stored here. So it says here that EHAB, is it not clear? Should I make it bigger? It's good? Okay. So EHAB have this password, which is D3. Okay? Now how hash can be used to verify passwords? Okay, so you set up your password at the time you log in, or you create your login and ask you to what's your password will be, right? The moment you give the password to the system will not use this anymore. Will hash it, and you will use the digest of the hash and store it in. So nobody knows about your password. System only knows about the digest of your password, or the hash of your password. So far so good? So how the system will use it to verify that you are Ihab or someone else, and how the system will use this to validate your login and let you in. When you come next time and say login, and I say, yeah, Ihab, this is my login. And then I say password, he give me password. And then I say, today is hot. Okay? Then the system will say, okay, this is the password. He will take this input. Okay? He will hash it. Get a digest. This is, let's say, DY. Okay? Compare it with the one here, or D3. Compare this digest with this digest. If they match, that means you know the password. Okay? Because the property here says, if M1 is not equal to M2, two ticks are different, the digest will be different. Okay? But if M1, only M1 can give you D1. Exactly M1. Every single bit has to be the same as in M1. Okay? I mean, this is what we call it perfect hash. You know, we are not, you know, let's assume that we have a perfect hash function. There is a possibility of collision, but the possibility of collision where M1 and M2 will be mapped to the same digest is very low. Is very low. So let's not to talk about this now, and the possibility of collision here, or the possibility that two different inputs, two different messages will be hashed to the same entry or same digest. The possibility of this is extremely low. Okay. But this is how we can use for login, for password authentication. This is you guys do this every day, every time you log into the system. Any questions here? Clear? Okay, so this is an important concept. Hash has different use and different function than encryption. Encryption is a variable size, hash is a fixed size. Secondly, hash is, and the second thing here, this is one property. Hash, this is second property. Hash is one way. If you know M, you can go to D. If you know the message, you can go to D through the hash, right? But if you know D1, which is the hash, you can never go to M1. You can never. There is infinitely many options to go from D1, which is the digest, to the original message. So if you know the digest here in the password table, password hash table, if you know D3, can you go and guess the password? Very, very hard. Computationally infeasible. We call it computationally infeasible. Means you have too many possibilities where the attacker will run out of time because it takes much longer. Excuse me. Okay, that's another important property here. In my slides, I provide more details of this, so you can read through, and this will be also in part of your midterm material. So you need to, when you study the slides, if you have any questions, we can talk about it. Okay, so what about this? I will do a WebEx on Thursday. WebEx on Thursday for 1 hour. Same class time, 7 o'clock. This Thursday? Yeah, okay, 7 o'clock in Thursday. Okay? And I will stay there. I will stay there for 15 minutes. If nobody show up, then I close it. Okay? But I'm there for 1 hour, from 7 to 8. Study your material, come up with the questions. Okay? About your midterm. Okay? The amount of, okay, so you focus on crypto system and attacks. Okay? I would say 90% of the questions coming from there. Okay, there are questions from TCP, there are questions from operating system, but very conceptual questions. Okay, so if you study them, if you go even your quizzes, I would advise you to review the quizzes. You will be fine with this one because you don't have to. So to put your effort proportionally, you just focus on the crypto system and attacks. Okay. Okay, so exam is online and it's an open book as well. So should be, I mean, this exam was not designed to be an open book, well, closed book. Okay, so it shouldn't be at all a problem for you. So. Okay, any questions here, guys? Clear? Okay, let's go back to our original one. Okay, so let's review the concept that we talked about yesterday, the class here. So I apologize that I could not upload it before coming to the class. Completely forget that some people may not. They will come today, but they were not there yesterday. But I will make sure that you are up, you have the background needed to follow here. Yesterday we talked about firewalls. Why firewalls? Why firewalls are the most key technologies since for more than 20 years. Every survey shows that firewall is the front-end defense in most or all enterprises. No one can stand to have no firewalls. So it's an old topic, but still an important topic, and it's always kind of evolving. And we talked about software-based firewall, hardware-based firewall, talked about stateless firewall, stateful firewalls, okay? And we talked about how the firewall evaluation or matching happen sequentially, what are the kind of firewall policies, extended and basic policy, what's extended policy, what's a basic policy, how to write firewall rules, to define traffic. We look at the asymmetric or bidirectional and unidirectional. Stateless is unidirectional. In stateless, you have to define both directions. In stateful, you don't, okay? But stateful is slower than stateless. So this is why we use in the network both stateless and stateful, okay? Let me start with this and just kind of reinforce this concept. Okay, so stateless versus stateful. Okay, so need you guys kind of bring everybody up to speed here. Okay, what's a stateless firewall? Can somebody? Yeah. Can somebody just explain the difference between stateful and stateless? Yeah.
It just goes through and it looks at each entry.
Which one is this?
Stateless.
Stateless. Okay.
And if it finds one, it just sends it. It allows it or denies it based on the rules, and then it does nothing else.
Okay.
It doesn't have any memory or anything like that.
Yeah.
And stateful will remember the transaction and then automatically allow the inverse of that transaction.
Or the reverse, okay, or the inverse of that transaction, the other part, okay. So this is operationally how they are different. So which one is, why we don't use just stateful? Stateful looks cooler and it's easier. So why not just use stateful? Yeah.
Sometimes you want to block the inverse of a transaction. Sometimes you don't want your employees to be able to fill out a form. Sometimes you just want them to view it. Sometimes you don't want your employees to go to a certain website. Like yesterday we were talking about not viewing CNN
I'm not
Financial.
aware of any case where you allow the request but you don't allow the response.
We were talking about yesterday where you were just blocking responses.
No, we are talking about not blocking responses. Actually, when you go and post a form, it's a request, post request. You block the request. I'm glad that you brought this up. This is a kind of a confusion here. When you block post in HTTP, right, post, you are blocking the request, not the response.
That's true.
Okay, yeah. So I'm not aware of any case that is useful or legitimate to allow the request and don't allow the response. You want to allow the request coming and you want to block the response. Okay, it doesn't have any use. Okay, So again, going back to my question, why we still keep using stateless?
Stateless doesn't require nearly as many resources. It's just a comparison. You know, dot 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 dot. It looks for a match. Bam, it finds one. The stateless forgets about everything else.
Right.
But stateful, like, it's gotta calculate the inverse and store everything in like memory, right? It's a lot more computationally expensive.
It's more computationally expensive, resource-wise more expensive, and even budget-wise more expensive. Budget-wise, because in stateful, you record every packet or every session that has been admitted or passed. So you have we have the state table. We call the state table. In the stateful, we have a state table. So this state table need a memory. Okay, this state table might grow. Okay, and it's an issue about the state. There are some attacks against the state table. Okay, this is beyond the class scope, but it has its own security as well. But when a packet comes, okay, you match it against the policy. If it's not in the policy, okay, or you match it against the state table. Okay, if it's not in the state table, you go and match it in the policy. Okay, so when the packet comes, okay, if it has been admitted before, because the first packet of the session has been passed before, it will be in the state table, right? So we're gonna match it against the state table. If it's not in the state table, it goes and look at the policy. So there's more looking. There's no lookup here. It's computationally more expensive. So it is not expected to be bought against large volume of traffic. Okay. However, stateless firewall, for your own knowledge, is actually integrated with routers today. You don't have to ask for it. Any router, any Cisco router has already built-in stateless firewall. ACLs, they call it ACLs. What's ACLs? Access Control List. We talked about it yesterday, ACLs. So stateless firewall is already embedded in routers. All what you need to enable them and put rules. Okay. So, but stateful, you have to ask for an enterprise stateful firewall. That's a kind of a very custom-made and specialized device. Okay, so we need stateful because here is what we have. We have lots of garbage coming to my network, and this could be high volume. Somebody might be DDoSing me or dosing me. Okay, send me lots of ICMP traffic. But I don't need ICMP. I don't need anything. I'm not allowing ICMP coming from outside or UDP. Somebody said, flooding me with lots of UDP. And simply, I have no use for UDP except maybe, in SDN, DNS. By the way, you have all the acronym: DNS, SDN, DNS, SDN. Everybody of those acronyms exist. So I don't need UDP. I don't need multicast. I don't need any traffic coming into my network from a certain range of ports. So if I don't need this for sure, okay, why not filtering it out right at the beginning, at the border of my network, and not letting this traffic coming in? And that's the function of stateless firewall, which is, we call it screening firewall. They call it screening routers. They call it screening routers. So we're gonna have screening firewalls, which is stateless. Its job it has a very well-determined plan of what is garbage, what's noise, okay? And its job is to filter the noise, filter out the noise, okay? Can you list here what traffic that you for sure you don't need? Then it is, if you can, then it's places here. The rule is places here, okay? And this will be immediately here, connected to this is what we call border, in the border of the network. And now here, what you have here is your secure network, where you have now another firewall here, which is here could be stateful firewall. It's like, you know, if I want to just, I'm kind of rehashing the concepts that we talked about yesterday. It's like, you know, here you have a security guard, okay, who knows who are the bad guys, okay? Who knows for sure who are the bad guys, okay? And he was given a very clear description, maybe photo pictures, okay, of those bad guys, and then you will not let them in, okay? Otherwise, he gonna let them in, okay? Whoever gonna let them in, otherwise, it does not mean they are legitimate yet. They will be subject to another level of inspection. Who gonna do this? The stateful firewall, okay? So, you're gonna put here what is really well-known, bogus, noise, garbage, you don't need, okay? And then the default rule here will be what? So this will look like deny, 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 okay, blah, blah, blah. Most of it deny, okay? And then what's the default rule? What? Accept all. Means what? If it's not denied, these are different rules. If it's not denied, then let it go through. Let it go through does not mean it's a good traffic yet. It will be subject to multiple actually level of filtration by what we call stateful firewall. Okay. Simply because this screening firewall does not have the knowledge of the entire network. Okay. Can you put one firewall that has all the knowledge of the network? Yes, you can, but it will not be scalable. It will not be scalable. You don't want to do this. You want to kind of divide your filtering processing into stages, and that's much faster, okay? So here's the first stage, entry point, ingress filtering, and it's taking care of the clear noise, okay? As I mentioned, you didn't want ICMP, you don't want multicast, right? So most of the rules should be deny rules. Because in your homework, you're gonna write this. It's not hypothetical. So you're gonna write this stated firewall. What are the rules? Okay. So you're gonna think about what are the rules. So I give you, if you look at my homework, I give you a description of a network. Actually, it's a company or enterprise that has a specific requirement, has specific topology, and they have specific services, and you are hired as a consultant to develop their firewall architecture and configuration for them. So the first thing you're gonna think about is the stateless firewall, and then you're gonna think about the stateful firewall. You might have multiple stateful. Usually you have one stateless. If you have one link to outside, one stateless or one screening firewall. Okay, and then you're gonna have multiple stateful firewall. Okay, and then you're gonna think about what are the rules. So the rules for the screening firewall, mostly what I mentioned here are deny rules. Can you have an accept rule here? My question. Knowing that most of the rules here deny, are you with me guys why most of the rules here deny? Okay, and then if most of the rules deny, the default rule for the screening firewall is, you know, allow the rest. I know about those bad guys. You know what? If it's not from those bad guys, if it's not from these bad guys here, I don't know much about it. Allow it. Let somebody else check it out. Okay? That's exactly the concept. Okay? Because no one has the full knowledge of the network. Okay? So maybe some firewall down there in my lab knows more about my lab. He doesn't need to know about my lab. Okay? Otherwise will not be scalable. Okay? He doesn't need to know about all the labs and all the subnets. He knows about the general requirement for the enterprise. I don't need multicast. That's it. Filter out multicast. Yes.
Where, like, I know you said at the edge of the network, but is this before it even gets? I know they're like
Before-
ones with the router, but it's like before the router, the first.
Before the routers.
Okay.
Before the routers. Before it gets into this. So just right there. I mean, this is the PGP router. This is the main router link you to the ISP. It's after the PGP router, but before the main router that routes into your network. Okay. Okay, here. Yeah, my question was, so you would expect, giving this description about the stateless, you would expect most of the traffic here, most of the rules here are deny rules. You deny this traffic, deny this traffic. But do you think sometimes you will have also accept here, along with the deny or after some of these denies? And why? We talked about something like this before, yes?
Yes, because if you wanted to have like a subset of one of the deny rules that was accept, then
Thank you.
put that first.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Yes, if you want to have an exception, if you he said if you have a subset that you want to allow, so it's okay. You can have something like this. I'll give you an example of this. So you would say, okay, any this is a rule UDP, okay, and then you say coming. Sorry, let me put it here. Let me put it here. So I write it here. So if you have you say UDP coming from any source, any port, going to my DNS .uncc.edu and port number 53. Okay, I want to allow this. Okay, and before it, I say UDP deny. You say this is a rule number 1, this is rule number 2. Okay? These two rules form a one concept, which is what? Deny all UDP except DNS traffic coming into my network. So you might see something like this here. Deny is composed with allow. These two rules correlated. Okay, we talked about this yesterday, and we'll talk about it more today here. Yeah.
Shouldn't the allow be above?
Ah, you're right. Sorry. Yeah, you're right. So will be rule number 1. Thank you. This is great. Yeah. This will be new rule number 1. The more specific should, So the more specific should come before. Yes, you're right. This is a good mistake to catch. Yes.
That implies that these rules are looked at sequentially.
The rules must be looked at sequentially. All firewalls follow what we call a sequential matching semantic. Okay, sequential matching semantic. And that's why we have to program ourselves in how to evaluate this. So if the traffic hits this rule, because it comes first, it will not be, the second one will not be evaluated. The next one will not be evaluated. Okay, so you can find something like this here. If you find an accept in the screening firewall, this accept is made for exceptions. That's it. It's not made for any other purpose because the default is acceptable. In the stateful firewall, the story is completely the opposite. The default here, the default rule, what? Default, deny all. That's the default. If the default is deny all for stateful, what do you think the rules will be here?
The accept.
The accept, you can have most of it accept, okay, and then another rule accept, okay, and so on. Most of them accept. And then the rest is deny. So that means this guy knows what he wants. This knows what he does not want. Right? You see how they complement each other? And so this guy knows what he wants, okay? And then if it's not of all the above that I want, deny it. No, I don't want it, okay? And where is this going to be pushed? In the edge of the network, because the edge of the network knows what they want. My lab, in my lab, I know what my lab wants, okay? In the software engineering lab, they know what they want. In the college level, College of Computing or College of Engineering, they know what they want. So usually the firewalls gets more fine-grained in terms of what they want when you go to the edge of the network, to the subnet, all the way to the subnet, right? And this makes sense why we have too many firewalls, because you cannot just put all of this in one box and put it somewhere in the middle of the network. The traffic anyway diverted in many different directions. And for every direction, you need to have a firewall. For every direction, you need to have a firewall, okay? So how many leaves in your network you have? Your leaves in your network, your subnets. 100, 200, you need that much of firewall, okay? Because everybody has his own requirements. Maybe I want multicast, but my next lab does not want multicast, okay? So the multicast will be allowed to my network, but will not be allowed to his network. Who's gonna do this customization? My firewall and his firewall are different. This is why we need to have multiple firewalls. And one firewall will not do the job, okay? In the big enterprises, you have the marketing department, you have the customer support, you have the engineering department, you have the accounting department. You think all of these departments have the same level of requirement and security requirements? No, they have very different security requirements. And therefore, everyone will have its own custom firewall rules that's fine-grained based on their security requirements. And this is why we have many firewalls, okay, or what we call distributed firewalls here. And this is why a packet, don't expect the packet comes through a firewall. Many people think a firewall is easy. It's not an easy concept. It's a concept that needs a lot of thoughtful, and there's an art work and engineering work behind building an efficient firewall architecture. Because packet coming in might pass through 3, 4, 5 firewalls before it gets to destination. And every firewall has its own make decision. And hopefully these firewalls are consistent and they are not conflicting with each other, and this is what we're going to talk more today. Today, yeah. So I want to say tonight, okay? Today, okay. So I'm just revisiting this concept. I talked about it yesterday. I'm revisiting this just to make it clear. Yes, you have questions?
No.
Any questions here so far? So in your homework, you're gonna have one of those, multiple of those. You're gonna think of this important concept and how you always. This is a major mistake. Major mistake. You lose the whole. You lose a lot of points here if you not understanding that the default of this is accept all, the default of this stateful is denial. And then based on that, you will configure it. Okay. So another important concept here, guys, that we talked about the relationship between these firewalls. So what we said yesterday. What we said yesterday that unfortunately because of. Is there anything?
No, it's okay.
Okay. Cool. Okay. Because of we eventually gonna have many firewalls, and every firewall has thousands of rules. By the way, firewall might have thousands of rules, and you have many firewalls. It could be hundreds to thousands of firewalls. Some of them are enterprise firewalls, which is in the network on the link on the path. And hardware based, and some of them are software based on the end machine. They are all firewalls, doesn't matter. They are all firewalls, they are all operating the same way. It's a mess. It's a mess. If you don't have a coordination across these firewalls to make them consistent, you may end up of having many conflicting rules. Conflicting rules leads to reachability problems. Some important services that are supposed to be reachable by their customer are not reachable anymore. And then customer calling you, hey, I cannot reach my services in the cloud, and you don't know what's going on. It's a conflict between firewall and routing, or firewall and another firewall. One firewall forwarded, the other firewall drop it. You don't know which one is that. Or it could also allow for a backdoor. You think you protect your asset by blocking people from coming that route into this server, but there's another route that bring the users to this service, bypassing that firewall. So that's a network backdoor. So there are many issues that might result of this conflicting between firewalls. Okay, so that's the problem. How we can detect and resolve conflicts between rules in firewall system or firewall architecture. Okay, now let's take this in 2 steps. let's look at the problems between rules in the same firewall, and then look at the problems between rules across different firewalls. Okay? 2 problems. Okay? I'm not gonna clean the whole house before everybody of us is purely clean, right? So you need to be diagnosed individually, and then we can build a network, clean network, because everybody is now, and then we need to do another level of cleanup when we integrate together. So the first one is called intra firewall verification. Intra means within. Is every single rule in that firewall is legitimate and valid within the firewall? Okay. Second one, we look at inter-firewall verification. Between the 2 firewalls. Okay. So 2 different problems. You have a paper to read. This one part of your assignment. Okay. And this paper, I'm gonna come across this paper is an IEEE communication magazine. It's very, very widely known paper, published a long time ago, read by hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, and written for engineers. It's not written for researchers. Okay, so you're gonna read that paper, 7 pages or 8 pages paper. That gives you a very good, solid understanding of what we're talking about here. But I'm summarizing all the concepts as well. So we know that now there's a problem called rule conflicting. We know what's the consequences of rule conflicting, which is reachability problem, backdoors, and so forth. And we know to solve this, we have to look at 2 things: inter-firewall verification and intra-firewall verification. Okay? Now, what is fundamentally the most important step we need to do is this slide. Understanding the relationship between the rules. That's a fundamental step in doing any of this analysis. And any work comes after my work. I was the first talking about this problem. Any work come after my work. They are doing one way or another of this kind of interrelationship analysis between rules. I'm giving you the 4 shortest or the simplest story of this in this diagram here. If you have 2 rules, okay, these 2 rules either are gonna be, by the way, these 2 rules can be distinct. If 2 rules are distinct, so in my diagram here, I'm just gonna go there. Use this one. In my diagram here, the rules are represented by squares or rectangular here. The green one is a rule and the red one is a rule, okay? And this is represented a rule. The green is a subset of the red. But there is one relationship here. Okay, let me go over them. The one rule is a subset of the other, but the smaller rule, the more specific rule, comes before the more general rule. We call this exception. We talked about yesterday. This one is again one subset of the other, but the more specific rule comes after the more general rule. We call this shadowing, and this is very dangerous. This is very bad. It's very dangerous. Exception is not error, but it's a warning. It's a warning. You have to keep an eye on these exceptions. Are these exceptions legitimate? Maybe it's legitimate today, but not legitimate tomorrow. Maybe the one you give him an exception is not in the enterprise anymore. Okay, maybe your network topology has changed, and this exception is not anymore makes sense. Okay, so this is a warning, but this is always a problem, shadowing. Okay, if this has happened. Okay, and I give you an example here. Okay, or you can have both. You can have the more specific rule, the smaller one here, the more specific. The bigger one is the general one, right? If you have a subset, more specific, is coming before the superset, but they both accept, they both green. Okay, this is redundant. Is redundant is a problem? Some people say redundant is not a problem. We talked about it. Redundant is a problem because it increases the overhead, processing overhead in the firewall. If you have 20-30% of the rules are redundant, what are they doing there? They're just giving you unnecessary overhead. We want to get rid of them. And the last one here, why is not? That what we call correlation that causes a partial. This is very interesting, causing a partial shadowing, also bad. This is very bad. This is very bad. This is mild. It has a performance issues. This is need to have a warning. Okay. This, if you have this kind of interesting relationship, 2 rules are overlapping. They are not entirely. None of them is a subset of the other. but they have an intersection between them. Okay, then this intersected area, it has an ambiguity. It's not clear which way to go. Should it be allowed or should it be denied? That's called correlation. Okay. So this is fundamentally the analysis that should be in the mind of the analyst, the firewall analyst, the firewall designers. Okay. There is one relation here is missing, and intentionally missing. I did not mention it, which is what? There's one relation here between the rules is missing, and intentionally I did not mention it. It's not important for us, which is what? If the two rules are, if the two rules are, no, this is set theory, right? This is set theory. Think of it as a sets, okay?
Disjoint.
Disjoint, if they are distinct, if the two rules completely distinct, the green and the yellow, two rules, one is deny, one is accept, but they has no intersection whatsoever, okay? So, if these two rules, if there's any rules that are completely distinct, it doesn't matter the order now. You can order them in any way. I mean, if you can write a policy, if you can write a firewall policy where every single rule is distinct, then it's a peace of mind. Go and sleep, have a deep, deep dreams, and don't worry about anything, okay? But you will be amazed. It's impossible. It's almost impossible to write extensive firewall policy without having this kind of intersection between the rules, because usually you want to make an exception, you want to have a special case here and there. So you often have lots of rules that have this kind of interrelationship or interdependency between them, and they end up to be one of those. Okay? There's no other relation, by the way. Other than distinct. These are the only relationship. So now you got, this is what we call it this is called intra, because we are looking at the rules, okay? Intra-firewall analysis. So let's look at this intra. So now we are just putting this in, what we have shown is just putting in a nice mathematical notation in a set theoretic, okay? R, X, and Ry are rules, X and Y, okay? If the order of Rx is below or less than the order of Ry, that means Rx comes before Ry, right? If the order comes before, okay? And the rules are exactly match or subset, okay? Let me put an example here. This one has an example. Okay, so this is exactly what we have in the diagram before. This is just putting in the mathematical notation. So if rule Rx comes before Ry, and Rx exactly matching Ry, or Rx is a subset of Ry, this means subset, okay, relation IA subset here, and the action of the rules are opposite. One is deny, the other one is allow, okay? If these two conditions met, this is a shadow. It's a shadowing relationship. Why I put it in a mathematical form? Because now I'm gonna write a code. I'm not gonna hire you guys to detect this. Because you know what? You have seen yesterday, right? Is human is untrusted in this kind of computationally intensive work. How many comparison you need to do? This is a machine. This is a machine kind of work. That can be written in a nice program, efficient program. Okay, now we are talking about, we're talking about sequential comparison, and there's no optimization here. We have some optimization later on, but just let's think about how we can deal with it from a mathematical point of view, regardless of the performance here. So how can we solve the problem? So if I give this one if I write a Python program to go and look for any two rules where X comes before Ry and this condition is satisfied, okay, the Python program can go and just look at the entire policy and come back to me and say, yeah, there are 1, 2, 3, okay. So this is why it's written this way, okay. So it's clear how we can build a program based on this. Correlation, okay. This is Rx and Ry. They have two different actions, but there's an intersection between them, okay. Exceptions is the same before. Redundancy is the same as before. So all of these are exactly the same as the diagram I showed before. There's nothing here is not. So this is an interesting example. I just showed this example to show how deep this analysis will be. Look at this example. This is example coming from redundancy. Okay? In redundancy, there are 3 cases for redundancy because the rules could be exactly matched or partially matched. It could be overlapping. There's many different ways, but you know the concept of redundant. Okay, they both have the same action. They both deny, or they both accept, and they have some overlap between them. Okay, or one is a subset of the other. It's redundant. Okay, why you are denying same traffic twice? Okay, okay. So if Rx and Ry, 2 rules, they both have the same action. Deny or accept, and one is a subset of the other. Obviously, the one is subset is redundant. Okay. So what do you think of this? X and Y, are they redundant? And which one can be removed safely? X and Y. Huh? Which one can be removed safely?
X.
X. Why?
Because Y is more bigger.
Booger means what is in the math?
Um,
Yeah, I said it a number of times.
subset. So
A bigger subset,
X is subset of Y.
and Y is superset.
Yes.
Superset. Okay. Learn that. It's okay. Do you agree with her?
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody has any questions on this? Okay. You're all wrong. Do you know what? I tell you what. Look at this. What if you have something like this? If you only look at X and Y, you only have X and Y, you're correct. But if you have Z, if Z is like this, then you cannot remove X. Why? Look at it deeply and think.
53 DNS port.
Look at the relationship here. So why the fact that Z exists will make the story completely different. It's not redundant. X is not redundant anymore. And X is there to stay. And redundancy is not there.
Because X is a subset of Z.
Because X is a subset of Z and Z is a subset of Y. And there's no redundancy here. Right? So I just show this example to the simplest example I can have from redundancy to show you how difficult sometimes to make this decision. Is this something that you would like to do on a daily basis? You know, you need to write a nice software to find these cases. The lesson out of this, you cannot make a decision by looking at pair of rules. That's a lesson. If you think that the analysis that I showed you before, I take a red and green pair of rules, okay? This is for simplicity. This is for you to understand the concept and the relationship. But this kind of analysis of relationship has to be done between every combination of rules in the firewall that has a relationship between each other. Any combination, every combination, okay? It's a combinatorially complex problem. This is what I mentioned last night. So it's not, if it's a pairwise comparison, this n square, that's it. That's not a big deal. But now it's not an n square. It's factorial, close to factorial. So this is why you don't want to do this by, you don't want to delegate this to a human. And actually, even if you want to do it with machines, you need to think of a very efficient way of doing it, very efficient way. And if you read my paper, you're going to find some of the optimization you have done to do this fast. But everybody understand why I cannot remove X here? Okay, X is a subset of Z, and Z is a subset of Y, and they together mean something. Everyone has its own role, okay? So Z denies something, but X make an exception of it, okay? And Y is accepting something, and Z is making an exception of it. So they make sense together. There's no redundancy anymore, okay? But if you look at X and Z without looking at X and Y without looking at Z, you will do a mistake. Therefore, pairwise comparison, pairwise comparison. Just making a decision based on looking at two rules, bad mistake. It's not the right thing. Okay, so this is in the intra analysis here. Hey, interesting. We know that we're gonna have multiple firewalls in the network. Many firewalls. Not only, but many firewalls. This is a very simple example of a enterprise that has 3 firewalls. By the way, this is an example that I gave as a test more than 10 years ago to engineers. I showed the result yesterday. It's in my slides. Expert, intermediate, and beginners. This is the example. And I asked them to find out if there's any bugs. And even expert, in 3 firewalls, even expert, for less than 90 rules, many experts did a mistake here, like maybe 8% to 10% of the firewall is misconfigured. Okay, so when you look at this, so you have firewalls leading to what? Subnets, right? Firewall leading to subnets. This is what you traditionally have. You have main firewall connected to the network, connecting to the internet, and this firewall leads to other firewalls that actually connected to specific subnet, because every subnet has its own security requirements. Okay, and for each one of these firewalls, you have roles. Okay, is there a possibility that these firewalls, let's forget about this one, any 2 firewalls here, firewall 1, firewall 2, will be conflicting with each other? And in what sense? I'm putting this as a question to you. Is there a possibility that firewall 1 and firewall 2 will disagree and will conflict with each other? Okay, there's traffic going from here to here. Okay, so, okay, this firewall say allow. Okay, this firewall say deny. What do you have here? There's a conflict. I mean, if you want to deny it, you better deny it here. Why you forward the traffic and goes through 2 different firewalls and how many routers in between, and then it comes here and deny it? This is causing unnecessary extra traffic on the network. It's called spurious traffic. We call it spurious. The traffic that should be denied right from the beginning. The unnecessary traffic that's forwarded without use, at the end is going to be discarded. So if this is allow and this is deny, it will cause a reachability problem, okay? And actually you can think of this, that this firewall 2 is actually shadowing firewall 1. This is blocking him off, shadowing his decision, okay? This is called spurious traffic, okay? Okay, so this is not shadowing, but this is called spurious traffic. Let me use a different color here. Let's have all the combination here. This has all the combinations. Start, okay. So what we call firewall 1 and firewall 2 in our terminology, okay? This is called the upstream, this is called the downstream. Okay, if the traffic going this way, I'm talking about traffic going this way, okay? Let's talk about traffic going this way, okay? This is called the upstream firewall, this is called the downstream firewall, okay? So, if this traffic say deny, I want to reverse it, deny. This say allow. I want this traffic, but that guy is deny it, right? So who's the victim here? This guy, because he wants it. He wants the traffic. There is someone here who wants multicast. He wants video. He wants gaming. Okay? But this guy said no. Okay? So we call this shadowing problem, a shadowing between 2 different firewalls, because one firewall is denying a service that another firewall allowing it. Okay? Yeah.
When you for networks that like censor web pages that like block certain addresses, do they do it through the firewall?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You can do it through the firewall. This is one of the traditional way of doing it through the firewall. But you see this? Deny, allow. The upstream, downstream. The upstream say, I'm going to deny this. The upstream, the upstream. The downstream say, I want this traffic. So you kind of taking rights from the downstream firewalls, okay? So that's a shadowing, okay, problem. So what about the opposite? If this, I'm going to use another color here. If this is allow, and this one is deny. This allow the traffic, the other one is deny the traffic. So what's going to happen here? Traffic will flow here, and then get denied over here. Okay? Well, if the traffic is going this way, it's going toward one of these subnets. This firewall is the master of these subnets. It's the firewall is the controller of these subnets. So if you decide not to allow any of these services to be accessible, that's fine. It's his authority. Okay, we are not questioning his authority. Okay, because it's going toward his own assets. But it's a spurious traffic. We call this spurious. There is one here. It's called spurious. Spurious. And this, the green one here. The green one here is shadowing. Okay? Okay? I want to pause for a second here. I just want to make sure that you grasp the concept here. So what's the difference between these two? Okay. In the shadowing part, okay, the traffic is going from F1 to F2. The traffic is going from what? F1 to F2. Who has the ultimate authority? F2. F2 is the one controlling surfaces here. He knows the most about the accessibility of these surfaces. Okay. If he said allow, I'm allowing you to come to my web server. This is a web server. I'm allowing you. And this guy say, do not allow. Okay. It causes a shadowing problem because the authority said it's okay. Okay, we call it shadowing problem. Okay. But the opposite, if the firewall here allow it, and the upstream firewall, the downstream firewall here, which is the destination firewall, say deny, then it's actually spurious traffic caused that should be, if you wanna deny it here, you better deny it here as well. Deny it here and just make it consistent. Okay? So it's not bad to deny it in both cases here. Because he's an authority. He will decide to deny or accept whatever surface is here. He's an authority. Okay? So it's just inconsistent. He should follow. This guy should follow that guy. Okay? And this is why we call it spurious. And is spurious is bad? Yes, spurious is bad. Based on our measurement, where we have a lot of spurious traffic in the network, you can consume up to 50 or more of your bandwidth because of unnecessary traffic flying from one point to another, and all this traffic can be eliminated, and you can save bandwidth. And now by saving bandwidth means what? Means you are more immune against denial of service attack. If you have a lot of bandwidth that's being consumed for nonsense or for unnecessary traffic, then you give a much better opportunity for attackers to launch a denial of service attack. Because most of your bandwidth is being used now, you only have a small margin of left unutilized capacity. The attacker will take him no much of a time and effort to flood you. So the relationship between DDoS and spurious traffic is very strong. The potential of DDoS increases when you have more spurious traffic. Okay? Is this clear? So by the way, I like to discuss things conceptually like that, okay, because I do have a mathematical formalization of this, but it doesn't make sense to look at the mathematical formalization before you have the concept clear. in your mind. So the mathematical formalization is just an interpretation of the concept here. Here is that. So before we have how many conditions here in the intra? How many conditions here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 8 conditions. 8 conditions. Here we have 15 conditions. 15 conditions to catch any possible conflicts between any two firewalls, actually between any two rules in any two firewalls in the network. These are 15. Let's see, 4, 4, 4, and 3. 12, 15. Okay. We show the proof that if your firewall policy are free from any of these 15 conditions, then your firewall policy is certified correct. It's a certification of firewalls. These conditions, these mathematical conditions, is to verify your firewall policy is legitimately correct. And there's no conflict between any two firewalls in your network. Okay? This is how powerful it is. Again, the reason I put it into such a mathematical notation so you can write a program. So you can write a program to search for those. Okay, that's all. Okay. So, and just make you understand the notation here. So, you will not be tested in this notation, just to make sure. You will be tested in the concept, guys. Okay, so understanding this only to understand the concept. Okay, when you see RU and RD, what's RU means? Upstream, downstreams. Upstream, downstream. Okay, so here, for example, in the first one, so the downstream, the upstream say deny, the downstream say accept. Okay, the upstream, okay, say deny, and the downstream say accept. This is called shadowing. Okay, because the downstream say accept. So, but the downstream say accept, the upstream say deny. Why? I mean, it should be allowed. Okay, so it actually in this case called shadowing. However, look at this case. The opposite. If the upstream say accept, downstream deny, it calls spuriousness. Okay, so I think I have a nice visualization thing here. This is upstream and this is downstream. So downstream is basically close to the destination. Okay, so the firewall is just right here. So let's assume you have two firewalls. Okay, so you have a firewall here, and you have a firewall here, right? Okay, so this firewall is downstream. This is close to the destination. This destination is here. The source is here. Okay, so this is for the shadow. So the downstream, close to the firewall, say, oh, I accept your traffic. Your traffic is okay. Come to me, no problem. I can offer you all the services I have. But the upstream say, no, I'm not going to allow you to go to that guy. This shadow this. Okay, this is how you understand. Okay, so you are responsible for understanding the concept here. The reason of providing this for you is just to make sure they test your understanding. Okay, but you are not responsible of writing or this kind of formalization. I do require this. It's just firewall analytics, heavy firewall analytics in my advanced course, where I show you that we can do even much more rigorous than this. This is very basic, it's theoretic. It does not scale. This approach does not scale. Why? Simply because I do pairwise operation. Pairwise. I take two rules, one upstream, one from the upstream, one from downstream, and compare them. If I want to do this in a firewall that has thousands of rules, it will take long time. Don't know how long. It will take long time. So we have another approach using binary decision diagram and using some other kind of formal methods to optimize this. Okay, and this is taught in advanced level. Okay, course version of this network security, advanced network security. So, but this is good enough for you kind of get the idea here and avoid doing these big mistakes in firewall configuration. Okay. Now, let's summarize. I want to summarize and then I will definitely pause for questions. Okay. Firewall configuration is a complex task. And misconfiguration of firewalls have a very severe consequences, and it might lead to backdoors. Backdoors means people reach to your services and you think that firewall is protecting you and firewall are not protecting you. Is a firewall give you a completely is misleading. The existence of firewall misleading. You think you have a firewall, you have a big lock on your door, but you know what? There's somewhere back door in your home. This big lock in the main door has no use. So back door is very bad. Okay. In order to get rid of this kind of misconfiguration, you have to go through what you call conflict analysis. And there are two types of conflict analysis. Intra, which is between rules in the same firewall, and inter, between rules across different firewalls. In both cases, it's the same kind of relationship that we always look at. Is there intersection between a rule and another rule? If two rules have no intersection, understand that, please. If our two rules are distinct, they will cause no harm within the same firewall or across different firewalls. So focus on those rules that has intersection, that has interrelationship, okay? So what kind of interrelationship? We can have 4 basic relationships, okay? And we show this in the slide. And each one of these relationships is leading to one of these problems, either shadowing or correlation problems, okay? And this is the conditions for inter, and that was the condition, the previous slide, the condition for intra, okay? So I want you to understand the following. When shadowing is caused, when SPDS is caused, okay, for inter, and for single firewall, when shadowing is caused, and when partial shadowing is caused, when redundancy is caused, when exception is caused. Okay? I want you to understand just the concept here. Okay? You will not be asked to write the math down or anything of that, or the formalization I have here. This formalization is to help you kind of, test your understanding. By reading it, you should be able to make sense of that. Okay, questions? Let me stop here. Because pretty much, I'm done with firewalls here.
I was just gonna ask, what's the difference between redundancy in like the intra and the inter? Because you said when both are denied in the inter, it's not a bad thing. So doesn't it cause overhead as well, or it doesn't do that when it's 2 firewalls?
Redundancy in this slide, you mean here? There's redundancy in this one here.
Yeah, so we said like when both of them are denied, that's a good thing because you don't want the traffic to go to the second firewall.
Redundancy across different firewalls is actually a requirement. You want firewalls to, no, let me. If it's a requirement, if it's accept. Requirement of accept. Let me put it this way: if one firewall accepts the traffic, then goes to another firewall, of the upstream firewall accept the traffic, you would expect the downstream firewall to accept the same traffic if they are consistent, right? So firewalls, different firewalls, I'm talking about redundancy across firewalls. Different firewalls in your network will have redundancy when it comes to accept. When it comes to what? Accept. Doesn't make sense that I accept the traffic and you deny it. It doesn't make sense. If I accept it and we are in agreement, if I accept it, you will accept it. If I sit by the door, by the main building here, and I ask, what's your name, please? Yeah. Aaron, you are Aaron. Okay. Yeah. You are the famous Aaron. I know. Okay. And Aaron is by the class door. I'm by the main gate in the building. Okay. And if I accept somebody coming in, and Aaron, what I expect Aaron to do? To accept what I accept. To be consistent. Okay. So accept across firewalls is expected to be redundant for the same traffic. Otherwise, you have a problem. The problem is the deny. here I have deny. Look at deny here, Selma, right? Deny here. Okay. So if Aaron deny him, do I have to deny him? Oh, sorry, the opposite. If I deny him, does he have to deny him? He doesn't have to. I already denied him. So why Aaron have his name again? So I have a name. If David comes, don't let him into the building. Why have to give the name to Aaron also? If David comes, don't let him in the building. If David only can come through me. So this is unnecessary redundant. We get rid of them. This is why this deny here is anomalous. Deny here is anomalous. The redundancy is deny is not correct. There's no need. If the upstream deny, okay, that's it. The downstream doesn't have to deny because the upstream deny traffic that belongs to him. You see the example I said, if I have in my list, David denied access to the building and I'm at the main gate, do I have to give that list to Aaron who's sitting here by the door of this room? No, because David will be denied anyway from the main gate, will not get into the building. So giving Aaron this list is just an overhead for Aaron, just an extra information that he will never use. This is why here, okay, but this is a good question. Okay, so the redundancy concept here is different because we expect to have redundancy in the accept side, but not in the deny side here. Okay, so again, correlation here, when you have two rules overlapping between two different firewalls, it will cause shadowing and redundancy, shadowing and spuriousness. That's really interesting here. I just want. Oh, I thought. Okay, so I will mention this here. So this rule and this rule, okay, cause shadowing, okay, because when accept, deny, deny. And this rule and this rule, deny, accept, deny. And this rule make spuriousness. Anyway, what does this mean? Any overlap between two rules in distributed firewall configuration will cause a problem. You should not allow of intersection between two rules. Any two rules that have intersection, okay, intersection overlap is this guy. You know this the relationship here. This one. If you have this relationship between two different rules and two different firewalls, it's bad. It can cause either partial shadowing or partial correlation. Shadowing or correlation. You should not allow of two rules in two different firewalls that overlap like this. So what's the solution? The solution is to break it down into three rules. We mentioned this yesterday. One rule is to cover this green area, and one rule to cover this intersected area, and one rule to cover the remaining area. Okay, divided into these three rules, that means they are distinct now. Imagine I've done this. I came and say, okay, I'm gonna have this as a rule, this as another rule, and then the remaining here, okay, this is as another rule. They are distinct, right? I have no problem, right? So as long as I have distinct rules, I will never have a problem, and I don't have to worry about ordering or conflict, right? So that's a solution for correlation. Split them up so they can be distinct rules. Okay. So I think there's lots of things here that I think it is overwhelming, but I think this is one of the interesting things that in our software, guys, we don't look at a firewall policy like rule by rule. We build a tree. We build a decision tree. I just want to motivate you to think how research helps sometimes here. The firewall policy like this can be actually represented in a tree like this. This policy is actually a tree, and then I look at the leaves of the tree. I know which rules are shadowing, which rules are conflicting, and I can make a decision using the tree. Okay, so this is the paper that you should read. I just want to make sure that this is the oops, the paper that okay. That we should. In this paper that's published in IEEE Communication Magazine, it's one of the top magazines in the area. So I talked about all of these classification of conflicts and misconfiguration, shadowing, experienceness, and many other things that even related to IPSEC as well, not only firewall. So it's one of your assignment to read this paper, and we can have good discussion about it. But reading this paper will definitely kind of deepen your understanding of this. This is the tool that we developed. We developed an automatic tool that upload firewall policy and look at all these kind of relationship, and it gives you clear understanding. Okay, if there is any IPSEC or this is now example for IPSEC, or it could be firewall. We're going to talk about IPSEC in a minute here, but this is an example of IPSEC. If there is any spuriousness here, there's shadowing here, automatically then the fixes can be hard sometimes, because sometimes there's a conflict, and this conflict is due to ambiguity, okay, and you don't know what's in the mind of the analyst. Does he want this? There are two kind of fixes. I can deny the traffic or can allow the traffic. It's not clear from the policy which way the analyst would like to go. So sometimes the fixes are not. For example, redundancy, fix for redundancy is very easy. Just remove the redundant, right? But the fix for correlation, for example, is not easy because it's ambiguous. So sometimes fixes is not straightforward. Okay. Okay. So far so good. So we can take a quick break, 5 minutes, and come back. But before we take a break, is there any questions need to be discussed here? Okay. Okay. So I think I'm glad that it's been recorded, so you can look at the recording again and make sure that the concept is clear to you. But I try to be as specific as possible, as clear as possible, repeating things multiple times. Make sure that's you can stop now.